Hello everyone, it's Michael Lazar here. Welcome back to the channel, and in today's video I'm going to share with you my process on learning a new hymn. So the whole point of this video is I want to show you what I think about so that these are things that you do not overlook when you're learning new hymns. Now, I have to be honest, I sight read a lot of things, so not always am I using this. But when it comes to learning a new hymn that's pretty difficult, or at least new to me and uses a skill I haven't learned yet, there's certain things that I have to really employ to make sure I know what I'm doing. So on this, I'm going to show you a very unique hymn that I would like to learn. So this is it's in Greek. Sorry about that if you don't like Greek so much, but I like it. So this is a triple meter version of the Thukyria, or the Said a Lord to watch you from my mouth, but it's in a tone that is not very commonly used. Sometimes in Greek they call it naos, in Arabic sabah, which I like that mode a lot, but it has a very heavy sound to it. And if I could describe it, I believe it is a mode of the hard chromatic scale. If you were to use words to describe it, but I'll explain it. So pa, based on pa is natural. Pa, vu is flat. Pa, vu, ga natural. Pa, vu, ga, the is flat. Pa, vu, ga, the, ga, vu, pa. Now, the ka is natural, zo is flat. Ni is natural, and pa is flat. So, starting with pa, vu, ga, the, ka, zo, ni, pa, ni, zo, ka, the, ga, vu, pa. Very difficult sounding scale. So when doing this, we need to be cognizant of multiple factors. One, we really need to be aware of the intonation and the tuning. And the other thing, we really need to understand the mood and the ambience of the tone. So sabah is not a very happy sound. Da, 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 da. So two things that stand out to me when I'm thinking about how do I want to I call this staging a hymn or staging a piece of music. What is the overall mood of the piece I'm going for? What is the emotion behind it? People will say don't use emotion when you chant. Well, ignore those people because those people really aren't that educated on music. I'm just being a little bit aggressive there, but the idea is the same. We really need to know the atmosphere in order to understand the mode. And something like tone 6, do you want a sad atmosphere, a mystical, a scary atmosphere? You need to make your choice. In this case, this can be a little depressing, this sound. The da 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 dum. So that's the kind of bigger picture mood. The next thing to look at after what is the mood we're looking at? We look at how does each note in the scale really sound. So something like hard chromatic, pa, vu, ga, di, ga, vu, pa. When moving up to the, ga is very sharp, very aggressive sounding, a lot more colored, while the tends to be a bit more resolved. Vu, pa, same thing there. The vu pulls, I guess you could say the pa pulls on the vu, so the vu gets a little bit more weight on it as well. So when you think about music in that sense, and each note has a different function, in West music the term is voice leading. In this case, this is the Byzantine voice leading thing, where the ra is very strong and the vu pa is very strong. So starting here, how much parali do I use and how much melos do I use? So to be honest, I use melos 99.9% of the time. Just because I've seen every thesis probably 500 times for the most part, and I end up only using parali when I have things that are not standard. Like if I'm singing something for example, Mitra Moore and Sherokims will put solos in there, and when I'm doing his solos, when it comes to these new theses that have never been written before, these are improvised theses that's his style, then you really have to understand what is the progression of the music, where is he going to, how do you interpret it. Progression of the music means which cadences are you hitting and how do they get to the next point. So in this case, this is a triple meter thing, so it's more to keep that dun 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 triple meter pulse in your head. But also look at the theses. So they like to go in this mode, ra and pa, and those are the two big things. A couple of these, and I'll explain how I'll think about them. and how I problem solve those things. So, in a little bit. But we see it's mostly pa to ra with occasional li. So if I were to sing everything together, it would sound like that. So starting from the beginning, remember the scale. Pa vu ra di ke zo ni pa ni zo ke di ra vu pa. Starting from the ra. Tho Kyrie philakintos to matimo. And then I see this diatonic to pa. So what am I thinking in my head? Why is it switching to diatonic on pa? And what is changing? Well, why? Because they want to do a the stop. And the in this mode is extremely weak. To stop on that note is very unsettling and not really strong. So the purpose of diatonic on pa, in my understanding, might be to make these stronger. And also there's a mood shift. To go from this really sad or heavy sound, if you're doing Western music, pesante, to go from that to something a bit more light, you have to really hear a difference in sound. So pa the. So now I have to hear the as a lot brighter in sound. Even if in tone 1, the is not necessarily the most bright sound. In comparison to Saba that came before, the is much brighter. So in my head, I'm hearing the mood change to something much more brighter. Kathiran periokis peritachilimu. Now I'm in tone 1. So when I put the whole thing together, I'm asking Michael, you're singing this kind of slow. Well, yeah, I'm learning it. Why am I going to sing it fast? So slow allows you to really hear all the intervals, all the notes, and make all the small micro changes that you need to do. So I'll sing from the beginning. Da 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 dum. Thu Kyrie philakintos to matimo kathiran periokis peritachilimu. And the other thing I want to talk about is phrasing. So naturally, I'm going to phrase things a certain way. I'm not going to sing no. If you want to listen to chanters like that, then you're in the wrong place. We don't believe in each note is just its own thing. We believe in phrases because we don't speak in notes or words. We speak in phrases. And the idea here is the same. The here to me feels like a question mark or like a comma, like dun dun da 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 dum. This is like an answer. So I feel like the beginning is like a statement. Kyrie philakintos to matimo kathiran periokis peritachilimu. And the words are, set, O Lord, a watch before my mouth, and a door will close round about my lips. That's what the text is. We know that from Vespers. But the idea is the music is conversational. And you're having a conversation with yourself. The whole point of phrasing is building, it's like a way of communicating. And if you're singing note to note in your music, something's wrong. And how do you think about music in this way? Well, there's something called shape and there's contour. Shape is basically, or contour is like, how does the music move? In this case, we see that there's a general flow of like, I guess if I could like kind of show you, it goes straight down, back up, down, and back here again, and then up, and then like, there's contour to the music. A lot of people like to shape their dynamics with the contour, which is like the most elementary thing to do. It works sometimes, but it gets really annoying very quickly. So a lot of times you think about not just the shape or the contour of the music, but you think about what are the notes that are being cadenced on, what are the strong and the weak notes. And you also think about where's the peak of the phrase, where's the pinnacle of the phrase, and how do I build to that? And then how do I either stay on that or move away from that? So a lot of what I'm thinking in my head is really nothing. I'm instead using my ear and using my sight to help navigate what phrasing works for the music. For example, bad phrasing would be like this. Tho Kyrie filakin tostomatimu kethiran periokis peritachilimu. There are a lot of bad things in it, but a lot of it is overemphasizing the first beat, which is not necessary, and it gets very annoying and very old very quickly. So emphasizing the first beat constantly is not a good idea. Another problem I had in there is that there was no legato. There was no connection. Everything was staccato. If I want to take a breath, it was like a lot of that sound. And that's not really something that is traditional in chant, to have a It's not good music, and it's not traditional. And it doesn't make sense either with the notes. So, but the better thing is to use kind of the music and the words to help connect the ideas together. So the next sentence, again, there's a lot to talk about here. So I'll start, and then when we get to different problems, we'll talk about them. So pavura, so I'm starting there. Mi eklinistin kardianmu is logos ponirias. And then this is a different jump. It's a weird sound because ke is very unstable in Saba, but in this tone 1, it's much more stable. Ke zoni pa to prophasis este prophasis. So the question is, there's a mood change that happens. Ke panizo ke dira, sounds like tone 1, or how do I go from Saba to tone 1? That's a huge problem here. Pavura is logos ponirias pa ke to pro ke zoni pa to profa. So to hear that is very difficult. So what am I thinking in my head? Rias ke pa. In my head, I'm hearing the ra as pa ke as almost back in tone 1. So one way you can do that is to keep the pa isun in your head. And when you hear the pa isun in your head, it allows you pa ke has a very strong note relation to it. So I'm hearing the pa isun. Is logos ponirias prophasis este prophasis enamorties. So again, very difficult jump. It's not easy. And I'd probably have to practice it a couple times to really hear it. But the way I'm problem solving it is not just forcing it. I'm thinking, what am I supposed to hear and how do I hear it? So when you think of that in that way, you learn music much faster, and it makes sense melodically, which is why you learn music. You want to make sense of it. So I'll start from here again. Mi eklinistin kardianmu is logos ponirias to prophasis este. My ke was a little flattened there. Like I said, I have to practice that jump. Prophasis este prophasis enamorties. So that's why I said, this is a piece I don't know very well. And that's why I'm looking at it, because I'm like, something I have to really practice. So we'll move on from there. But as you can see, this is something that I figured out how to solve it. And I just work on some tuning, but I know how to approach it now. Let's keep going. Pavura sinanthropis ergazomenistin anomian ke umisin diaso metaton eklekton afton. The back to change in tone 1 here. It took me a second just to realize the meter again, but the change is there still. So it's still that same mood change. Same thing here. Let's keep going. Bedevsi medikeos eneleike Alexime. And then this, I'm like, different. Now it's ke, but it's back to saba. Kezopani eleon the amartolo. And then the natural milipanato tinkefalinmo. So in my head I'm like, that's a lot. De kadiravuga kezopani zakadiravupavuga. So crazy. So I'll start from the pe. Bedevsi medikos Analeike Alexime Eleon the Amartolo Milipanato Tinkefalinmo. You could probably get away with doing this flat. Tinkefalinmo. And that would work as well. Odiati Kei prosevchimo Entes evdokia softon Kate. And then pake katepothisane. So you see this back to diatonic change. I think of the mood change. So Otiati Kei prosevchimo Entes evdokia softon katepothisane chomena petra sikrite ofton. So I think the problem I had there is I didn't hear the mood change stark enough. Papa kedigavu pa, especially that natural vu is very important there. So you know, something I'll practice, but I know. Katepothisane chomena petra sikrite ofton. Then we keep going. This is different now. Akuson detarimatamu. You might do tamu. You know, both work there, but up to you. Otidithisan. That vukadiravura. It's pretty crazy. Otidithisan. Osipachos gis eragi epitis gis. Diescorpisti. Taostafton paratonadin. Hard chromatic. Again, another mood change. It's hearing that mood change. Now, for me, I saw the hard chromatic sound. I was like, okay, gotta hear it differently now. So, there you go. So I'll keep going. Kem oti prose Kyrie Kyrie Iofalmimo. And then one episil pisa miandanelis timsichinmo. Takes me back there. So more tone 1 in this. There's no saba in here. And then we come back here. Phila. Oh, I'll just make sure I see it. Philaxon me apopagidos isinestin. Sorry. Isinestin satomi. So in my head I have to say that differently. That did not make sense to me. So Pavura Philaxon me apopagidos isinestin satomi. I'll take it slower now because I know in my head, okay, I can't sing this at tempo. I really have to slow down. So I'll do note by note and really sing it slow. Pavura is, or I'll do partly. the ravu pavu radi ravu papa. Does it make sense? So what's wrong? Well, I need to hear the switch of tone 6 earlier. So actually I'm going to work backwards so I know what it's supposed to sound like. So I'll start from Nepal. Nesti santo mi, Nesti santo mi, bavuga. And then I try the isi nesti santo mi, and there I got it. So what did I do there? Slowed down, went note by note, and I made sure that the tuning of each note was right. So slowing down helps a lot. Aura filaxon me apopayidos isinestin santo mi, and then ke apo. Back diatonic here. By the way, if you didn't see it, ke apo skandalon. So that was a hard one because it went to a new tone that really did not fit into the scale so well because it inverted the ga and the di. So again, that showed new strategy was working backwards, hearing what is it supposed to sound like. So when I go backwards and start from a little earlier, I know how that fits in. So let's keep going. Pesunde enafiv listro aftoni amartoli katamonasi mi ego eosam parelpo. So I don't know if that's right. Gavu papa relfo. That's what it should be more of. I made the vu flat because that's more what I was used to singing, but in that case the natural vu makes a lot more sense there. So I'll start again. Pa pesunde enam flivistro aftoni amartoli katamonasi mi ego eosan parelfo. So for me that vu was really where I need to fix it. So let's keep going. Phonimo proskirion ekekraksa, phonimo proskirion edeithin. Feels good to me. Echeo enopion aftotin theisin tin, and then dun dun dun. So I think of natural vu. How can I think of it? You can think of it like diatonic on ni, something like tone 8 maybe, and that may make the Torah make sense to me. So pa ni vu pa ni zoni. So for me that helps make sense of the music, and the progression makes sense too. Ni back to pa feels like an ananas but prolonged. So I'll start from the that's hard. So I'm going to work backwards. I'll start from the knee. Tin flip sin mo mo sin mo tin flip sin mo. Okay, I'll try it now. Ekeo enopion aftotin theisin mo tin flip sin mo Enopion αυτό απαγγελώ. There you go. So I figured it out. Just how to slow it down, work backwards, figure out the mood changes, what are the scale changes, what's progression. A lot of small things, but they all work together to problem solve. And that's what I hope you're getting from this, that there's some problems don't exist, and some problems really exist, and how do you fix them? Endo εκλείπειν εξεμού το πνεύμα μου και εσύ έγνος τας τρίβους μου. That was not so bad. Εν οδό ταύτη υπορευόμην έκρυψαν παγίδα μη. Straightforward. Κατενών εις τα δεξιά και επέβλεπον. Sorry. Επέβλεπον και ο κοινό επιγινώσκομαι. And then back to the scale again. It's funny, it's Ghazalic and harmonic, but it does not sound like enharmonic. Apoleto to figa apemo. Do it again. Apoleto figi apemo. Don't want to get the words wrong. Και πάνιζω και δίγα νυπάβου. That's not right. Okay. Παβουγάζω και δίγα βουγα παβουγά γαδράμ και ουκέστ και πάνιζω και δίγα βουπα νυπά. So I'm a little stumped here. The change in tones doesn't make so much sense to me. So let's think about it. First I'm going to read pitch pa because it's a little bit high. Pa ni pa pa is fine for me. Pa vu ga di ke o kestin o exiton tim sichin mu. So I know that diatonic part. Pa vu ga di ke di ga apangemu. So ga ke pa. So I really should hear the apemu ke pa. Really starting from the up, I gotta hear it a little differently. Pa ga apoleto figi apemu και ουκέστην ο εξήτων I can't speak, sorry. Ο εξήτων την ψυχήν μου. So that worked. Working backwards and hearing the music differently and hearing the change in scale earlier helped out. Εκέκραξα προς Κύριε είπα σι ελπίς μου με γαβου πανί. So back to that tonic there. Σι ελπίς μου με δίγαβου πανί merismo iengizondo. I'll try it again. Ekekraksa prose Kyrie ipa si elpismo merismo iengizondo. So Does that make sense to me now? Prosches prostin deisimo oti et tapino thins fodra riseme ecton kata dio condome oti ekrate othis ani per me. So that's the whole selection I have. So why did I make this video? One of it is I just wanted to show you what is the process I do when I'm practicing. And the reason why is because a lot of times people are like, well, I practice an hour a day, practice hours a day. But what is your practice involved? Is it like focused, concentrated, problem solving, actively listening, thinking about mood, thinking about difference in color and mood and changes in the scale? Now, this is the piece that, I don't know if I'll ever sing in church, but I don't know. I need to practice, and sometimes you need to learn new music and harder skills to learn. So part of my wanting to teach in this way was to show you, one, what do I do when I make mistakes? So do I keep drilling and drilling and drilling and drilling? No, I like never do that because it's a waste of my time. I go back and I figure out, what am I actually supposed to sing? And sometimes the transitions are hard. So I figure out each individual part and then figure out how can I put them together. So as you saw when I was between thoras, and I was like, this is thoras, I guess. This is hard for me. I don't know what I'm doing. I need to go back. I didn't give up. I didn't get frustrated. I was like, okay, this is what I don't understand. I know I don't understand this because it changes scales, and it's a difficult scale to change into from this other scale. So it's like, let me get this new part by itself, hear how it transitions from the note before, and then how can I hear that transition a little earlier so I can get it right. That's a difficult skill to do. I'm not saying it's easy, but I'm saying that's how you should approach music. It's really a lot of problem solving, and that's why it's fun for a lot of people who are learning music. Singing is great. I like singing, don't get me wrong. It's really enjoyable to sing. But problem solving and learning music is its own endeavor, and it can be very fun or it can be very frustrating. And oftentimes it's both. So part of making it not frustrating is figuring out, how can I solve these problems quicker and more efficiently? As you saw, I didn't just grind it 100 times. That was not what my goal was. And yeah, you might be like, yeah, Michael, you can sight read well. I mean, you saw me, a lot of the notes I had messed up because I was like, I don't know this scale so well. So I had to really slow down, learn, basically in my head, hear each individual note and really calculate the tuning sometimes so I knew exactly what I was supposed to sing. And then after I felt comfortable, I put it together. And yeah, there's spots in here that I could practice a couple more times just to get down. But if I wanted to record this maybe tomorrow and practice it tonight a bit more, I could do it. And the whole point I'm trying to get at here is that when you're learning music, it's not about basically how many hours you put in. It's about how well are you problem solving and how well are you trying to figure out the music as almost like a detective. What are the things that I need to figure out? What is the problem here? Who is the culprit? Or what is the culprit in this case? So it takes a lot of time. Takes a lot of patience, and a lot of practice. But I hope this gave you some inspiration for when you're practicing next, of things to think about and how to approach problem solving. So, hope you found this video helpful. If you did, I'd really appreciate if you liked and subscribed. Other than that, I'll see you in the next one, and have a great day.